These are some of the most anticipated strategy games coming in 2026 or later. People are genuinely waiting for them. Will they actually be as good as everyone hopes? We'll only know once they finally release. Age of History 2 Definitive Edition feels like the kind of project that isn't trying to reinvent the game, but rather finally fix the stuff that always got in the way. From the trailer, you can tell the core is still the same, but almost everything that used to feel annoying or slow has been reworked to be faster and more comfortable. The interface looks cleaner and bigger, and the map is much nicer visually. It's closer to the style of the third game, but it still keeps the identity of the second. The biggest thing for me is the quality of life improvements. Army control no longer looks like some kind of micromanagement punishment. Now you can gather troops in one move, send them where you need them, or drag them across a route and capture tiles along the way. The same goes for the economy, construction, and assimilation. You don't have to confirm the same action 10 times anymore. It all works through simple arrows and clicks. Sounds small, but it really isn't. All of that saves a ton of time and makes the whole game feel much smoother. So far, there don't seem to be that many major mechanical additions, and you can feel that. This doesn't look like a brand new game. It looks more like a very polished version of Age of History 2. I still hope the developer is holding some things back and plans to add something deeper later on, like a surrender system, because that's something the game has needed for a long time. But even in its current state, Definitive Edition already looks like the version you can finally play without constantly grumbling under your breath. Overall, my impression is cautiously positive. This isn't a revolution or some loud reboot. It's just an honest attempt to make Age of History 2 more modern and more convenient to play. And if this doesn't get stuck in development forever, and the release version is actually polished properly, then for fans of the series, this could be exactly the update they've been waiting for. No huge drama, no empty hype, just a solid improvement where it matters.
Thou shalt not kill. So the priests tell us.
Chronicles. Medieval looks like a game that immediately aims for the niche of big medieval sandbox experiences. It's that classic rise from nothing fantasy again. You create a character, start out as basically nobody, and slowly grow into a military leader, politician, or landowner. The world is supposed to feel alive and brutal, full of wars, rebellions, alliances, and all of it shaped by your choices, rather than some rigid script. What grabs me the most is the combat. The battles clearly seem built around personal skill. You're not just sitting back and watching armies collide. You're actually in the fight, choosing weapons, gear, and tactics. It matters how you fight, how you command your troops, and what decisions you make right there on the battlefield. It feels like one of the game's biggest bets, making war feel weighty instead of just treating it like background decoration. At the same time, Chronicles, Medieval doesn't seem to be only about action. Capturing castles, defending them, handling diplomacy, and ruling territory all look just as important. You'll have to think about who to ally with, who to obey, and who you'd better crush while you still have the chance. And all of this takes place on a big European map where your status can change fast. Today you're a mercenary, tomorrow a vassal, and the day after that, you're the one people are building a coalition against. Right now it sounds incredibly ambitious, which is exciting, but also a little dangerous. The big question is how deep all of these systems will really be in practice. If the developers can balance scale, combat, and player freedom, then Chronicles. Medieval could easily become one of the standout medieval sandboxes of the next few years. I'm definitely keeping an eye on it. The stakes feel way too high not to. Down with the Ship is a 2D strategy game that looks simple at first. But underneath that surface, it hides a surprisingly deep ship design and micromanagement system. The key thing here is how interconnected everything is. Every stat, effect, and component affects the rest. For example, boosting speed doesn't just make your ship faster, it also raises your chance to dodge projectiles. And once you hit a certain threshold, it can even trigger invisibility. So instead of just picking the best parts, you're building synergy between every system on the ship. The gameplay is built around preparation and automated battles. In the demo, you can fight ships made by other players through asynchronous multiplayer. And in the full version, there'll be a campaign mode called Bounty Mode, where you hunt pirate lords across the map. Before each battle, you visit a shop to buy weapons and modules. One of the more interesting mechanics is the ability to merge identical items into a stronger version, which lets you use your limited ship space much more efficiently. Even though the internal systems are pretty complex, the game still seems friendly to newcomers thanks to its built-in codecs and smooth onboarding. Visually, it stands out because of its clean animation and well-designed interface, which stays readable even when there's a lot of information on screen. Completing missions and objectives earns you credits that can be spent on cosmetic upgrades, so you can give your fleet a bit more personality too. This looks like a perfect game for people who love experimenting, finding weird solutions, and slowly refining their tactical setups until everything clicks. Economic Miracle is a very detailed economic and political simulator. You play as the president and the executive branch of a country, guiding it into the future. The game features 110 types of resources, 80 services, real currencies and exchange rates, a huge legal system, production chains, diplomacy, war, and a lot more. It's basically a sandbox for any experiment you want to run. The world is non-linear and can develop in different ways, and you're the one shaping that direction. The game tries to mirror real economic systems and goes all in on recreating the real world as closely as possible. It starts in the year 2020, and from there, the question is simple. Can you make your country great, achieve an economic miracle, lead nations toward peace, or just burn the whole world down instead? That choice is entirely up to you. Empire's Edge. Empire's Edge is a cozy strategy game inspired by Megalomania from 1991. Just like that classic, it has islands floating in space, era progression, and unique buildings and armies for each age. But as development went on, I started adding a lot of things that were never in the original. One of my big decisions was to include multiple races, so you can instantly tell who controls each island just by looking at it. Right now I'm planning humans, orcs, elves, and dwarves, though at the moment only humans and orcs are in the game. I also want every race to have its own unique traits, not just a different look. Even their behavior should feel different. Some factions will be calmer and more focused on growth, while others will be more aggressive. That should make the game feel much more varied. Unlike the original, which only had 4 buildings per era, I already have around 10 buildings for a single era of a single race. And the more I keep developing the game, the more new building ideas show up. You can also choose exactly where to place them yourself, which adds another strategic layer. You have to think about what to spend your resources on and what kind of development path you want, because each island has limited space, and eventually you just won't be able to build everything you want. The good thing is, buildings can also be demolished if you need to free up room. There are different unit types too, including melee and ranged units. There's also a forge where you can upgrade unit stats within the same era, and when you advance to a new era, the buildings and units will change along with the requirements for creating them. If the idea of the game sounds interesting and you'd like to support the project, I'd really appreciate a wish list. Feudums is one of those projects that grabs you instantly with its visual style. It looks like a medieval manuscript or an old tapestry that somehow came to life, and compared to the usual sterile 3D look of many grand strategy games, it feels fresh and weirdly cozy. This isn't just another paint the map game. It feels more like an attempt to recreate the actual spirit of feudalism, where you start as a minor noble with a tiny patch of land and try to claw your way toward the crown. The whole thing seems built around the idea of a personal story, not just dry resource accumulation. The most interesting part is the vassalage system. Unlike a lot of strategy games, Feudum seems heavily focused on social hierarchy. You can swear loyalty to another player and become their sword and shield, or do the exact opposite and start plotting behind your liege's back while quietly gathering your own supporters. And those were some of the new strategy games coming in 2026. Of course, there are plenty of others that didn't make it into this video, and some of them may have already shown up in earlier episodes. But which ones are you waiting for the most? Hope this was useful, or at least interesting.